David Hendley, a former corporate executive and professional American football player, joins me to talk about his landscape photography. From professional athlete to corporate executive to landscape and nature photographer, David continues to enjoy the many chapters of his life. As far back as he can remember, David's always had a passion for the outdoors and nature. Today he uses this passion to create images of our natural world. In a soft and silent way, David looks to bring to life the hidden beauty of landscapes and nature, often found in minimalistic settings. He discusses his initial inspiration, self-teaching journey, and the emotional connection that drives his work. We highlight his love for minimalistic desert landscapes and his experiences capturing seascapes in California. David emphasises the importance of emotional ties to a scene, his approach to composition, and his disdain for extensive photo editing. We also explore the environmental impact of increasing foot traffic in natural areas and the importance of photography in educating about nature and climate issues. I hope you enjoy the show. G'day, David. Welcome to Landscape Photography World. How are you going?
Oh, doing very well, Grant. Thank you very much for having me. It's a real pleasure. I'm looking forward to a good conversation.
Yeah, same here. As we were talking about before we started, I saw your work online and I thought, this guy looks really interesting. I love the style of his work. I love the minimalism. I love the desert landscapes. There's a whole bunch of stuff to love. And if anyone listening hasn't seen David's work, get online, check him out. He's got some really awesome photography. Where did this all start for you, David? I'm really interested in why you became a landscape photographer and how it all got started, and we can talk a little bit more in depth from there.
So with me, Grant, and I think I've heard this kind of situation before, being a corporate executive, getting a little bit stressed, all those things, and finding a way out or finding something that eases the stress. With me, 2017, I'm corporate executive, high up in the company. I won't say it was a little bit of a stressful position, but I felt that I needed something to relax me a little bit more. I had taken some photographs of the kids playing soccer, and I've always liked that, but never really thought anything about it. And where I was working at the time was near the ocean in California. I was living there at the time. So I just started getting up very early and going and taking some seascapes. I didn't know anything about a camera, self-taught, and just thousands and thousands of trial and error and really liking it and getting my mind focused on something different than work. And I would do that before the office, going a little bit wet sometimes. And then on the way home, I do the same thing. I'd stop and do some practicing, and that went on for a few years, 2017, 2018. And I really started to enjoy this. It really was an out for me to spend quiet, peaceful moments working on something that I had suddenly found a passion for.
Awesome. And I guess when you first started looking to learn about the camera and learn about photography itself, were you doing it with the intent that it would become some kind of artistic and creative pursuit, or was it more just trying to capture the feeling of where you were and what you were doing?
I think in the beginning, it was more of just trying to relax more. I've always loved nature. I've always just being outside. And as I started doing it, and as I started teaching myself and just reading the manual, I was not a social media person. I didn't go online to try to learn anything. I read the manual front to cover of the camera 3 or 4 different times and kept going, gosh, I don't understand this stuff. So I was more of trial and error, and I'm a competitive person. So I just kept challenging myself to get better and better. But to see where it was going, no, I never really thought about the end result. I never thought about the finish line. I just really enjoyed being outside. I enjoyed working with the camera. And then, of course, as time goes on, and I could see that I'm getting better, now I'm thinking a different way.
Yeah, okay. And is that something that was fairly recent, or something that you just dawned on you that, okay, this is actually art?
I'd say, all those trial and errors were about 2017. About 2018 is when I started to say, okay, I really enjoy this. I wonder what I can do with it. And then some people had saw my work while I was in the office, and they said, "Hey, do you want to sell that? I think I want that one."
Nice.
And I'm like, "Are you serious?" I never really thought about that. But I know me when I'm focused on something, and when I really want to get good at something, then I'm all in.
And I guess, what is it that has influenced the way that you've developed your style the most, do you think? And to me, you've certainly got a very distinctive style. There's a similarity, and I'm not saying all your images look the same, but there's a similarity in both the compositional and also some of the editing techniques that I can see that you've used that really stand out to me as being, okay, this guy's definitely got an eye for composition, and he's definitely got an eye for making a beautiful image. I guess one of the things that has interested me is, where did the influences for some of those elements come from?
No, that's a good question. I don't, and it is a very difficult one to answer because I don't look at others and say, "Gosh, I wish I was like that. I wish I did that." That's far away from me. I would just say emotionally, if I'm tied to that scene, then emotionally that's what I'm going to take. I've
Sure.
been in many places, Graham, where the scene was just unbelievably beautiful, but emotionally, I'm not there. I'm not connected to it. So I'd rather just sit and enjoy what I'm looking at rather than push the shutter button. But if I'm
Yeah.
emotionally tied to it, yeah, I'm going to take the shot. But there are many times where I don't take the shot because I'm not emotionally tied to it. And yeah, I have to be emotionally tied to that subject or to that scene to really focus in and laser myself on, okay, this is what I want. Now I have to work the scene and, okay, how do I want it? What's it going to look like? What am I envisioning? How do
Mm.
I want the viewer to feel this emotion that I'm feeling?
Yeah.
Hope I answered your question there.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I guess one of the things that comes from that, or stems from that question, is, do you do a lot of pre-planning or pre-visualization before you even go out into the field? Or are you more thinking about, okay, I'm just going to go here, and if it connects, then I'll do my thing there, wherever it happens to be?
Yeah, that depends. If I'm traveling somewhere, if it's 6, 7 hours away, 5 hours away, I have an idea. Okay, this is where I'm going. This is what I'm looking for. But most importantly to me is remaining flexible because there could be other things that pop up and, okay, this outweighs what I was thinking about
Sure.
earlier. But a visualization, yes, that plays a huge part in me getting the image that I want.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned some of the photos like the desert and so on. For example, some of those desert photos that you've seen, they are in a storm,
Yeah.
and I had been waiting months and months for a storm to come to Death Valley. It shows up on my feet. In my mind, and I've been to the locations many times. In my mind, I know exactly what I want.
Yeah. And
So
so,
yeah,
sitting there pre-visualizing, you're basically working out, okay, looks like conditions are going to be what I want, time to head out.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now conditions may not. Now if conditions change, still,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
yeah, I enjoy being outside. Period. I'm not going to cry over, look what happened now. Now it's gone. I've driven 6 hours. No, it's then I'll just scout around and be better prepared for the next time.
You talked about that emotional connection, and I'm interested in the role that connection plays in infusing an image with your own style and vision. What are the things that you think you're trying to communicate the most in, and I'm happy to tell you a bit later what I think the emotion is, but I'm interested in knowing what you think it is.
Yeah, so you've mentioned that word style a few times. I don't know what my style is. I have no. I've People have said, "Man, I like your style," or I could tell that that's from you, and I'm thinking in my mind, I really don't have any idea what you're talking about. But it's a lot of emotion. I want that viewer to feel what I'm feeling at the time that I'm hitting the shutter, or at the time that that I am looking at this scene, this image, this whatever it is that has connected me to be in a place where I am going to create an image that I want you to feel. It could be the mood that I am in. I could be in the mood of, since I love being out there by myself, and my mood could be, gosh, this is an unbelievable day, or this is an unbelievable scene, or this is so beautiful that I gotta get it. That's what I want the viewer to feel.
Right. Right.
Now I'm interested in what you were saying that.
For me, the emotion is, and of course, this isn't for every image, because some of your images I see as being very different emotionally. There's a very different emotion. For me, I can see a mood that says, here's the beauty of what I'm seeing, and I want you to actually feel the impact of that beauty. And the way that I see that you're doing that is that you're actually isolating, and it may be some of the smaller scenes, but even in some of the larger landscapes, you're isolating your subject and saying, okay, here's this leading line into the subject that I want you to see, or here's this particular way that this sand dune may be lit or whatever. And the feeling that I had when I was there is one of joy. And so to me, yes, you've got some somber work, but mostly it's a feeling of joy. And that's the predominant feeling that I get from your work.
Yeah, I'd say you're pretty spot on. You're pretty spot on. So that makes me feel good, because that's what I want people to feel. What I'm feeling at the time, I want to transcend that to the viewer. It's critically important, and nothing brings me more joy when a person says that to me and says, you know what, I feel exactly what you were feeling. But also, what I do enjoy is getting that image that people don't see.
Yeah.
They may walk past it every day to work, or drive past it every day to work, or ride their bike by it every day to work. And I see something, and they go, where's this? And I say, you drove by it or you walked by it or whatever, but it's right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing that I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it definitely comes across that you're showing people, I think, things that most people don't even see today. And
Yeah.
I take a similar sort of approach in terms of a lot of my seascapes. I mean, mostly I might see between 1 and 5 people when I'm up silly o'clock out at a rock shelf taking a shot. And it's that knowledge that 99.9% of people, I live in a big city here in Sydney. There's about 5 million people in the city. And I know that almost all of those 5 million people are not seeing what I'm seeing. There's probably a couple of hundred that have seen what, to me, that brings me a huge amount of joy in sharing that with them, and getting those people that aren't up early getting able to share in that joy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you do a lot of, in learning, I guess you must have gone through quite a bit of frustration, both learning the camera, but also learning techniques of composition and so forth. How do you deal with those moments when things aren't quite working as well as you'd like, and the joy just gets evaporated because you come back from a shoot and you go, that didn't work out the way I thought it would?
Yeah, good question. Being self-taught and taking thousands and thousands of photos, and I'm a realist. I knew that it was going to take a long time. I knew that I was going to have a lot of trial and error. It never bothered me. Never bothered me at all. I always thought things didn't work out. Then I use that as a learning time of, okay, what did I learn from this?
Yeah.
And then I move forward. I can honestly say I've never been in any disappointment or anything to that matter, because I love what I do. And learning the composition. I think learning the camera was 20 times more difficult to me than understanding the composition. I can honestly say I think my eye has always been there, because I've always been able to see exactly what I want, and be able to get it in frame exactly the way that I want it. Understanding the camera and learning the camera, that was frustrating. reading and reading and trying to understand it. But the composition wasn't too difficult for me.
Okay, cool. In terms of,
I don't know if I'm good at the composition, but
I think you are, right? They look pretty pleasing to the eye to me.
Good to hear.
I guess in terms of how successful you've been with that communication, is that what defines success in your photography? Is that when somebody comes along and says, hey, this gives me that emotional pull?
I would say that is a piece of it. It's not everything, but
Sure.
that's a piece of it. But that is a piece of it when someone says, hey, I really get what you're feeling here. I love this piece and I got to have it. Or that's beautiful. I feel what you're feeling. Yeah, that is a big piece. But the successful part to me is probably capturing what I really wanted to see. And if I capture something and then I'm looking at it and it is the emotion that I was feeling at the time, then I'm like, perfect. Doesn't have to be sold, doesn't have to be anything. It's what I wanted at the time. It's what I was feeling at the time. Composition was great. The lighting was great. Then I'm feeling pretty darn good.
Excellent. Excellent. You mentioned on your website that you've both been, we talked a little bit about being a corporate executive before, but before that, you were also an athlete. Tell us a little bit about that.
So in my first life, I was a professional American football player. So that's part of my competitive nature there. So if I'm doing something, I want to be pretty good at it. But yeah, that was a fun time.
Okay. Who were you playing with?
New England, the Patriots.
Okay, cool.
That was a long time ago.
Before Tom Brady.
Yes. Well before Tom Brady. Yes.
Yeah. So are you based in Boston now? Or are you
Connecticut?
Connecticut. Okay.
Yeah, Connecticut. And with the corporate job, my family and I moved them all over the U.S. We've moved 10 times, coast to coast, in the middle. But now we are settled here in Connecticut, and it's a great place. But I learned where I did all of my learnings of photography within California.
Yep.
Yeah, in Southern Cal. That was a great place to learn. And it was, like I said earlier, going to the ocean every day and just practice and trying to get things to be good at it. And the other thing about being there, which was fantastic, was the national parks. Once I got the hang of everything, I got 5 hours to Yosemite and 5 hours to Sequoia, and then I got Death Valley. That was a tremendous education for me as I was learning.
Nice. In terms of what photography is to you now, what is it other than a relaxation, is it a job? Is it a lifestyle? Is it a hobby?
A little bit of all of those things.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that now I would like it to be more than a hobby. I like it to be, this is what I do now, and I'm working towards that. I'm in a place now in my life where I think I can do
it. Yeah, okay. Are you looking at setting up your own photography business? And if so, how are you going about, what things are you putting in place to make sure that business succeeds?
First of all, I think that I'm in a very good area in New England. It's the one thing that I do have here is an endless amount of woodlands. I got the ocean here. It's endless. So my area is very good, but I also like to travel. So I think that with me, I just got to continue to get better. And when I say get better, keep looking for the locations where they're not so popular. That's what I like.
In terms of, you mentioned where you live, do you think where you lived in California and where you're living now and the places that you've been, do you think they've influenced not just what you shoot, but also a little bit of how you shoot in terms of techniques that you're using?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that, so in California, that's where I started shooting. So Seascapes were a big part of my collection then, a huge part. And that's what I learned. Moving here to Connecticut, things are a little bit more difficult now. I'm really searching for the right composition. I'm searching for certain areas, and I like that. I like this a lot. I think it's made me a better photographer because I'm more focused on the composition. I'm more focused on looking for things, more focused on feeling at the time. So yes, definitely. That's such a good question because I'm wondering to myself how much more of a minimalist would be right now if I was still living in California.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure if I would have went down that path. No.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm interested also, do you have a favorite spot that you've shot, a place you'd like to retire to?
There are many. Yosemite is one of my favorite spots. With my wife being from Austria, we are there a lot. So the Alps is also one of my favorite places, and we return there a lot. But I have favorite spots, but also I look forward to new places. I probably look forward to new places more than the favorite spots. I've been there and done that, and although I love to return to those places, but I probably get a lot more joy of finding something new. And now I have a new favorite spot.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. That exploration is fantastic. There's definitely something nice about somewhere that's familiar, that you know where to go, where you're going to set up for a particular composition, whatever it happens to be. And that, particularly with seascaping, conditions are always going to be different. So it's going to the same spot doesn't matter so much there in those sorts of shooting environments, because you know that whatever you saw last time isn't going to be exactly the same as what you're seeing today.
And I grew up here in Connecticut, so it was a good, so it's return for me. But just recently, I spent a couple of days on Cape Cod.
Nice.
And that's a new favorite spot that I'm going to be returning to many times. So much to see there, much to shoot there. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time there. So,
what's your most memorable experience?
My most memorable would probably the first time that I went to Yosemite and going through the tunnel and then coming across and then seeing El Capitan in front of you. My jaw just dropped. I almost crashed the car. I'm like, oh my gosh. All the things that you see like in books and everything, and it comes right there in front of you. And
basically just there in front of you.
Yeah. So as far as most memorable, that's probably the most jaw-dropping, memorable experience. Seeing that place was just, for the first time, it's just incredible.
Yeah, yeah. What about horror stories? Have you had any real painful experiences?
I was shooting in Puerto Rico. I was there on business, and I got one of my favorite seascapes. And it was just a wonderful morning, stormy. And I was in this one location for about 10 minutes. And like an idiot, I walk away from my camera, took 2 steps just to look at something else. And I turn around and my camera's in the water, tripod and film. I'm like, how the heck could this happen? It's been standing here for 10 minutes and nothing's happened. Yeah, so that was probably, that was not a good one.
Did you retrieve it?
I was not able to retrieve the camera, but I retrieved the card. And the image that I got there, it's one of my favorite ones. One of my favorite images. Yeah. Yeah. But the camera, unfortunately, the camera was lost.
It's no good.
Yeah, that was not a good one.
I know the feeling. I've had the innards changed in my Canon a couple of times because I've set up in the wrong spot and got it way too wet.
Yeah.
It doesn't mind a little bit of spray, but if you whack it with a wave, it's not happy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The spray is fine, but when you turn around and you look and it's in the water.
What do you think the practice of photography has taught you about nature? Obviously, we learn a lot about photography in nature, and nature can inform our photography. I'm interested in what photography has taught you the other way around.
Grant, when I was younger, when I was little, there were 2 books or 2 magazines that I read constantly: Sports Illustrated and National Geographic. Those 2 I could not live without, and probably National Geographic more, because I would just get the sports page from the newspaper, and then I'd have all my knowledge of sports. But National Geographic, it was one of the, if you were to ask like my mother about my photography, she wouldn't be surprised at all, because she said that's all you did was read animal stories and animal books and look at pictures. So where do I think it's going? It's concerning because I think as humans, we did this to ourselves where the saturation is there in all of these places and they don't look the same as they did 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
So how do we correct that? That's the real question. How do we guard against the erosion that is happening? Is it education more? You're out hiking and all is garbage and so on. And I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah. I think it's a tough thing to answer, but I guess one of the things I certainly don't do is post a lot about the exact location unless it's a place here in Sydney. If I'm at the beach, I'll tell you what beach I'm at because it doesn't really matter because thousands of people are going there every day anyway. In places like that, no problem in sharing where I'm going. But if I'm out in the bush somewhere and it's a little bit secluded and it's not a place that gets a lot of traffic, then I certainly don't mention where I'm going.
Yeah, exactly. And more recently, I've been taking that approach. Unless I'll say, if I had posted something that's from, let's say, Cape Cod, I won't say where. I'll just say it's Cape Cod. Yeah,
make it a big area and make it. If thing is, if people want to find something, they can find it. It's the Google Maps has just made it so easy for people to locate that sort of stuff. It shouldn't matter if you're gonna take the effort to go and find it and then hike 10, 15 kilometers or whatever it is to get to that location. All power to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I would say another thing that it has taught me is that it's endless. I've been in places and every day I could find something from nature new. And that's a beautiful thing. But I still get worried about how to guard against what we were just talking about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you prefer photographing alone or do you ever go out with other people?
No, I don't know too many other I don't know too many other photographers, but I do love being alone out there.
Yeah. What about when you get home? Are you straight into processing and editing, or do you leave things to marinate for a while?
I'm more let it marinate for a little while, 24, 48 hours. I think if I'm excited about something, yeah, definitely, then I'll go right at it. But more times than not, I'll put it down and hopefully keep those thoughts in my mind and go and look at it because the editing process I don't like at all. So
Okay.
I'm not a big editor. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
So what I've got to ask now, why don't you like editing?
Oh gosh, I don't like it. First, I don't think I'm very good at it.
Okay.
I don't think I'm very good at it at all. So that's one of the reasons. But just sitting in front of the computer and yeah, no. I can tell you this: if I'm spending more than 10 minutes on a photograph, then I'm out. I'm done. Yeah, I don't. I try to. I'm one of those photographers that I try to get as close as image as possible when I'm hitting the shutter to the way I want it. I know some may not agree with that, but that's the way that I learned myself. That's how I taught myself to try to be as close as possible. Yeah, and mainly because I don't like to edit. I don't, gosh, sitting in front of a computer and doing that, 10 minutes tops, 10 to 15 minutes tops, and that's it. If I have to spend more than that, then I'm thinking to myself, okay, then David, you didn't do a good job taking a photo. And I know that's not the way to think, but that's how I condition myself.
Yeah, okay. It's just fascinating to me. I'm kind of 50-50. Liken it to the darkroom days when film was around. So yes, you had to get it right in camera so that you had the good ingredients, but then part of the other side of the cooking is getting the processing right so that you're bringing out the right contrast and color and all those sorts of things. So it just interests me when people say they don't like editing. I can see that you're not bad at it.
But see, I don't have the experience that you've had of the dark room and so on. Yeah, I've never had that experience. I've never been there, never been in that environment. So the only thing I know is this. And yeah, I really don't like it.
I've got to say, I recommend that to anyone that wants to understand their photography better. if you've got the opportunity, get yourself into a dark room, take some
Right.
shots of film, and even if you've pre-developed the negatives,
Right.
then in the dark room and learn a little bit about processing. The interesting thing is there that you'll find most of the things and the name, even the names like dodge and burn and all those sorts of things that come out in Photoshop or other editing suites, they're all based on techniques that are darkroom techniques, and understanding what those original darkroom techniques are, and then you can transfer that very easily into Lightroom, for example, or Photoshop, because those techniques are effectively the same sorts of things. It's all about the contrast and the colors and controlling the image end to end, from where you push the shutter button to even before that, where you were visualizing. I'm always visualizing, okay, how am I going to shoot this and process it? Sometimes I'm thinking, okay, I want to process this in a certain way, and so I'll shoot in a certain way to give me the result that I want to utilize back in the editing suite. So yeah, to me, it's all part of the same process.
Oh, that's interesting. I would love to try that sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd recommend it. Have a
Yeah.
look and see if there's some photography courses that do film photography, and
Right.
I'd recommend going and doing something like that to anyone that is interested in, that hasn't experienced it. If you've experienced it, it's what started my love of photography back when I was in high school, was getting in a dark room with a blank sheet of paper, photo
Right.
paper, dipping it into chemicals and seeing an image appear. It
Right.
was, and it's, to me, that was really the hook that started my photography journey. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. I want to keep doing this.
For
Anyway,
sure.
I've got a couple more questions before we finish up. Do you ever have moments where you're hitting a creative wall, or you just, the photography isn't happening for you? Do you ever have issues in trying to create? And if so, how do you deal with that?
I don't. I think because I'm always taking breaks, I'm always going hiking without my camera. So it's not always shooting. I'll go out and I'll scout, and that's without my camera. And I don't put myself in that position where I'm putting all of that pressure on myself to get something. I don't go down that road. I'd rather use that time and that thinking for scouting and mentally taking a picture of where I am and saying, okay, this is a place that I'll be back whenever, whether
Yeah.
it's a seasonal change or something, and I'll write it down. But yeah, I don't get into that type of block, because even if I even feel that way, then I'm out doing something else, hiking, and still having that mindset of a
Yep.
photographer. I'm looking for light, but I'm not putting that pressure on me because I don't have my camera with me.
Yeah. Okay. Where do you see photography's place in society in general?
Yeah, good question. I think that it's still relevant. And I go back to the education piece. I think that I can remember being in elementary school and learning about the wilderness and learning about nature and looking at the pictures, looking at the photographs of wildlife and looking at the photographs of mountains and things. I think that's needed more than ever now, that education piece while kids are young. Because I think that the disrespect of nature now, from what I see, like the garbage, and of course, social media plays a big part in that. I'm not saying social media is bad. I'm not saying that it's good, but it plays a big part in how these areas are now treated. But I also think that is a way to help with that.
Yeah. Okay.
I like, for my kids, I show them things, and they're like, "Wow, I didn't even know that was there."
Yeah.
Or so that's where I think that photography is going to become more important. And people talk about AI and so on, and I look at that as an opportunity, that this is real and that isn't.
Yeah.
So I, I don't. I'm not bashing people who use AI. If that's what they want, if that's what they want to do, then that's what they want to do. But there's always going to be a place for reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think collectors and people are always going to want what is real. It's going to be those that don't care, but there are also going to be those, whether it's from educational purposes or just collectors or people that like your prints, that they want what's real.
Yeah, I think that with things like climate change and things like the way social media portrays some of those sort of images and the fake stuff, as you say, I don't think will hold as much value as the stuff that is actually reflective of reality. And if nothing else, that historical record of this is what this place looked like at this time has its own intrinsic value.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And also, I think about nature itself, and you were asking about what does it taught me about nature. I also think that, unfortunately, we've done a lot of damage ourselves. It's something that somehow we have to find a way to better this. Somehow we have to realize that there is serious climate change that's going on, and we are the cause of it. So how do we get out of this? How do we fix it?
Yeah, totally agree. Where do you see photography going in the future?
I definitely think that landscape and nature photographers are going to play an important role, or should play an important role in education of nature, of education of maybe even helping us slow down this situation that we are in as far as the global warming and so on, because those places, I could tell you, there's places now that I go to that don't look like they did 5 years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's where I think that photography would be very important. And I just wish that we could do more, but I don't know what it is. I really don't.
What's your favorite thing about being a photographer?
Being outside.
Yeah.
Being outside in nature, the hiking, being an avid hiker, I think that just love to be outside. Always have, and I always will be. Being outside and being in nature and finding new locations, searching, exploring, all of that. That's being outside in nature.
What's your least favorite thing about being a photographer?
I don't even know if I have one. Besides the editing, there's nothing really that I could put my finger on that I don't like. If I'm out there shooting, I'm having a great time. I'm smiling. I'm happy. If the weather is bad, I'm happy. I'm happy also. It's probably the worst thing is when I'm coming back home.
Yeah.
Because then I'm not outside. If you really want to think about it, even though I love my home, but yeah, just being out in nature, I love it. I can't say there's anything better.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
What's the best and or worst piece of advice anyone's ever given you?
I think it's been about 3 or 4 years ago. I got a text message from a photographer. I can't even remember his name. I remember that I looked him up and he had thousands and thousands of people following him. So I thought he was quite important. I can't remember, but he sent me a note and he asked me a question. He said, "What is the subject?" And that's all he wrote. What is the subject?
Okay.
And I'm saying to myself, who the heck is this guy? He sending me this text. And so I remember I wrote back to him. I said, "Excuse me." And he said, "I love your work. On some I struggle because I don't know what the subject is."
Yeah, okay.
Of course, I start flipping through some of my images, and I'm like, "Guy's exactly right."
Wow.
I'm like, and so I think that's the best advice. And I can't remember who it was that wrote me and said that, but he asked me what the subject was. And I realized even today, when I am out shooting, that's in the back of my mind always. What is the subject, David? What is the subject? What is the subject? So thank you to this person who sent me that text. And for bad advice, I couldn't even tell you. I don't even think that way. Give me bad advice. It's in one ear or out the other ear, or I don't associate with those type of people. There's no negativity here.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
What advice would you give a 12-year-old David?
Keep shooting. Yeah. A 12-year-old David, I would say, hey, you're going to have some up and downs, and don't let it derail your goals or your thinking. And you're going to have some failures, and you learn from those failures.
Yep.
You're going to have some success, and grow from them. But most importantly is the failures. You're going to have to learn from them and move forward. I
Yeah.
think that's, if that was a 12-year-old David, that is exactly what I would tell him. I would say, hey, you got it.
Nice, nice. I've got only two more questions for you. One is obviously, who else should I be talking to on the podcast?
There are so many great photographers out there and a lot that I enjoy looking at their work. There's one that I follow, and she does landscape and seascape, and that's Kelly O'Leary.
Okay.
Yeah, I think she's in the Southeast United States. Yeah. Kelly O'Leary, I would say another person whose work I like and I would love to understand his background is Steve Arnold.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard of any of them.
I haven't heard of Kelly, but I've seen some of Steve's work. Yeah.
Daniel Land.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard of him. I like his work. He's a landscape photographer. Has some moody images. I think he's a person that I followed early on.
Yeah.
There's a group of people that call themselves the Seascapers. They're in Southern California.
Yeah, I've seen some of their stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I would take a look at theirs, but it's hard for me because I don't want to leave anyone out.
No, that's fine.
But there's so many good photographers out there that I see that. Yeah, but those few.
That's why I'll never run out of people to talk to.
Oh, you won't. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I've got one more question for you. And for many listeners, it's the most important one because it's a question that I've been trying to get to the bottom of since the beginning of the podcast. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, I'm very simple. Pepperoni pizza. That's pepperoni or just cheese pizza. Those two.
Yeah.
Well, just fine. I'm very simple. I drive my family crazy with that, but I'm very simple.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. All right. It's been absolutely wonderful catching up with you, David, and getting to know you a little bit better. And hopefully some people find your work. Where can they find your work and how do they find you?
At David's Pursuit, DAVIDS PURPUIT, David's Pursuit.
Yep.
I think I spelled it correctly. And my website, davidspursuit.com.
Awesome. Thanks very much, David.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers. Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show and keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at grantphotography.com, along with prints, photography gear, and my 2025 calendar. I'm also on Vero, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.